And good morning, everyone. We are now live for week 2 of COP21. As you might have seen, we are now indeed in COP period, which is something that you guys don't need to know about procedurally if you're watching online, but it's something that's very exciting for all of us here. Basically, what we saw transpire on Friday evening, Saturday evening actually, we were here until Saturday, as you might remember. On Saturday evening, we transitioned into what is now a very, very exciting period of the negotiations. We will have some really, really interesting negotiating breakouts all week. They will be fighting hard, late nights, almost every day this week, trying to find an agreement at the end of what we understand to be Thursday morning, which is potentially the time that we need to then break into the kind of the high-level agreement and get this stuff legally binding, or as much as it can be, and therefore come out with an amazing proposition for the world by Friday afternoon. As all of you know, my name is Chris Wright, and I'm here with the GCCA and the Adopt a Negotiator project, now called Climate Tracker. I'm also joined here by Tierney Smith, who's with the GCCA, and she's a bit of a communications guru that hopefully you've all grown to know and love over the last week, and potentially we're all going to grow to know and love many more aspects of Tierney over this week. We also have Joshua Wiese, who's going to give you the political download, or the upload in the case of if you didn't get enough sleep last night, and that's going to be the case when you're going to have to upload all of the information we need. But I think you got a good rest last night, and we're going to have a pretty good update. And as you know, regularly, we're going to jump into the audience. So if you have any intelligence, you probably have some combination of both or one or the other. If either of those are buzzing around your mind right now and you have things you want to share about the negotiations, we're going to jump live into the audience, as well as if you've got any actions planned. As you can tell, it's been a pretty exciting morning for me. I've been running around the place and I can't wait to run around the audience very soon. But before I do that, let's cross live for the political update. Josh, we saw a lot of key shifts on Saturday night. There was a lot of fights that we reported about kind of leading up to Saturday night, but overall, we saw basically more urgency in the first week than I've ever seen before in my history, and I think that sets us up well for this week. What do you think we can expect?
Well, the handover to ministers or to the COP president went smoothly, so that was pretty nice to see on Saturday. I think we heard some troubling rumblings from a few countries. It looked like Saudi Arabia was trying to block basically everything. We heard, well, I guess we didn't know quite what to expect. It's often the case. There's kind of a precedent for these texts not being adopted, and that being a big fight in countries using that transition period as a way just to get a little bit more leverage, holding it back. But it went smooth, and we now have 4 cross-cutting working groups. So I think if you've been here last week or paid attention, every day we came in and we said there's been progress on the margins of the key issues, but not on the sort of core, sort of central pieces of it. And to address that, the French presidency has decided to convene groups around these cross-cutting issues. So last night we had a finance and means of implementation meeting that was chaired by Gavin in Germany. I think that continues today. We had a differentiation meeting that was chaired by Brazil and Singapore. We have an ambition and long-term goal meeting that was chaired by Norway and St. Lucia, and a workstream 2 pre-2020 ambition meeting chaired by Gambia in the UK.
So St. Lucia and Gambia in the UK became the new chairs that we didn't hear about on Saturday night.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we hadn't known that.
So in the Saturday night, they said we'd kind of be updated on it. So this is a really interesting thing.
And I also heard this morning that last night's discussions, it was raised that adaptation needs more attention as a big working group, and we will see a fifth working group. There are no details on it yet today, but it looks like at least at the moment we have these 5 working groups going forward. I didn't get to attend last night's session, but I got to chat with a few folks who did, and maybe some of you have details, and we can get updates in a few minutes. It seems like the most significant concern at the moment is around the ambition mechanism. So basically, the text is dispersed, it's confusing. We don't have a sense of when the next political moment is after Paris, where we might get an opportunity to say, okay, here's the time where we review government's national climate action plans and we increase them. So there's not clarity on that. And there's not yet a sense that basically that will come out of here without locking in essentially a 3-degree world. So that ambition mechanism is really important. Obviously, that's connected to the finance means of implementation discussion and lots of other the discussions around differentiation and how different countries have different responsibilities and different capacities. So hopefully these working groups will help move that forward. But I think there's probably need for a big push on our part to get that review and cycle up mechanism, that piece of this deal, more concretely placed in this text, get some clarity around it. Some good news from last night. It sounds like everybody is on board with 1.5 as part of the agreement, with the exception of the Saudis. So good job, everyone. A lot of you have worked your butts off trying to raise the profile of that issue every day, being out there in the halls with signs. And, it's just been a constant piece of our engagement as civil society here, backing up the climate focus call.
So Josh, just on that notion of the Saudi, I guess, kind of questioning, up on our screens right now, if you are kind of live in the audience, you'll see the Saudi comments around that they made during the final kind of meeting when they were opening this idea.
This is Saturday.
Yeah, this is Saturday night. They specifically said that they only wanted proven science a number of times and tried to kind of push around the last IPCC report, which as we know is a few years back, and kind of they had this like almost forthright rejection of any other political or kind of what they would like, I guess, phrase as non-scientific reporting. Should we be worried about that? Is that something that is just kind of a ploy? And do we have any kind of updates on how that might develop this week?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely worrying. Last night, it sounds like the Saudis' line was that 1.5 degrees would be against the convention objectives because we would limit land use with the impact on the right to food and the objective to eradicate poverty. And there's pushback that I've heard from colleagues that in the convention, actually, a lack of scientific certainty should not be used for an excuse for inaction where the impacts will be severe. So we know that the impacts will be severe if we miss that 1.5 degree mark. Also, the 2013 to 2015 review, which was a topic last week, where scientists took 2 years to look at the adequacy of 2 degrees, what would happen in that case, and what we know about 1.5 degrees, and they found that it is a clear demonstration that 2 degree world would have severe impacts on the most vulnerable people. So this position that the kingdom has taken last night is actually failing. It is actually failing up to live. It's failing to live up to the principles of the convention and actually actively implementing. So,
and I guess what they're not mentioning, of course, is all of the further people pushed into poverty, all of the kind of impacts of climate change at 1.5, which I think you could probably make a pretty clear argument, probably much more than potentially the development undercuts that might kind of mysteriously happen if there were some bad decisions made.
I think we can maybe get more updates from our friends from the MENA region, but it does sound like there is active lobbying going on within the Arab group to push the Saudis off this position, and that may happen. But as a trade-off for groups moving out to this position, what it looks like we might lose is language on decarbonization and other as well as other important language that could send market signals. So we have to. So it's great that we're moving closer to 1.5, and now we have to make sure that we have the right stuff in this agreement to implement 1.5. Right? If we just have 1.5 degrees in there, but then we don't lose any clarity. We lose any clarity on decarbonization or how that would happen. And I think the Saudis might be okay with that because there's plenty of space for them to protect their oil markets otherwise. So really a precarious sort of situation on the ambition front, both with the cycles of ambition, language being all over the place and weak, as well as potential trade-offs on decarbonization in the long-term goal. A few other interesting maybe updates to note. It sounds like the Philippines again pressed for full decarbonization by 2050, which is in line with what most of our partners are pushing for. They're looking for a peak and zero global emissions by between 2060 and 2080. The EU pushed on reducing emissions by 2050 compared to 1990 levels, and they're pushing this language around climate neutrality, so different than carbon neutrality, and we can talk about what that means if that starts to get more traction. I think there may be some space for us to define what climate neutrality means, because frankly, it's not well defined. Which could be an opportunity for us, but we have other clear language that we're pushing, like decarbonization of the global economy that should come first. Venezuela again brought up pushback on decarbonization, linking it to net zero emissions and the dangers of land grabs and potential downsides of net neutrality. And let's see, I think we're also hearing, and I don't want to leave off this before we jump into the audience. On these cycles of ambition, a lot of us are focused on the mitigation piece of this, so reducing emissions. But there's also a lot of talk about cycles of ambition on finance, cycles of ambition on adaptation, and it sounds like we're seeing some slippage on cycles for adaptation. And just more broadly, we're seeing slippage on the effort to rebalance this deal so that it has a stronger adaptation role.
What do you mean by slippage there? I guess kind of slippage could mean a lot of things. What are you thinking?
Well, I'm probably not the best person to speak to the details, but I think it means that we had a strong push by the African group, for example, to get clear finance commitment of the sort of 100 billion by 2020 to go towards adaptation. We have pushed for a long-term goal on adaptation. Then the language has been weakened a bit, it seems. And then we're not getting as much traction as we'd like on including sort of cycles for adaptation plans alongside the cycles for mitigation. So I think what we're going to see today and tomorrow is a push by a lot of civil society groups to get clarity on the ambition mechanism. I think that what we're going to have to do probably is get a better sense of the pieces that are there and how we can use that to create to basically build an ambition mechanism, sure, without all of the ingredients. There's talk of a 2019 facilitative review, a 2021 stock take. Others, I think the Africa group led by Sudan is pushing for the first stock take to be 2024, which would be too late. So we have to kind of sort all this out, get some clarity, figure out how we can make the most of what's there and rebuild these sort of essential pieces we have to fight to keep.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And I think a lot of that action here in the negotiations, there's been a lot of shifts even over the weekend. So I guess above and beyond kind of that detailed, in-depth look at these negotiations, you could definitely say that negotiators are here ready and kind of pushing as much as they can to get an agreement by Friday, which certainly serves well for my weekend plans. But I guess it is also something that often doesn't get reported very often. Often they'll talk about the number of pages in the text. They'll talk about kind of ongoing disputes on differentiation. But I guess often we forget that these negotiators are, sacrificing a lot of weekend time, sacrificing a lot of hours of sleep. And if you do see any negotiators this week, it might be a good day for a hug and a bit of a coffee offer as well. I think they've had a bit of a long weekend and maybe didn't get to party as much as some other people in this room. So they've got a long week ahead of them, and it might be a good time to kind of help them through this Monday morning blues. Believe it or not, it does exist even in the UNFCCC. So I'm going to cross over to the audience now, and if you have any kind of updates or you want to jump on anything that Josh has mentioned so far or ask any further questions, this is now your time. Hopefully, we have such a packed room in here that we're going to have a lot of updates, and I see one hand here. So was that a wave or was that an intellect update? A quick update. All right, can someone start a clock here? Let's time Lee here, if it's going to be quick or not.
Hi, Lee from Canada here. Just wanted to mention that yesterday our environment minister mentioned supporting 1.5-degree goal. So kind of crazy for Canada. I don't know if we're ready for raise of the day just yet, but it is a big shift from what we're used to, and just something to put on your radar in terms of a developed country. If you want to talk to me more about how I feel about Canada and how we need to push them more, feel free. But just a quick update on Canada on that end, and maybe just another update. There are 2 fossil fuel execs who are on their official country delegation. So if anyone here is working on fossil fuel accountability, corporate accountability work, feel free to see me later.
Lee, he just on that while you're standing. Australia has also kind of at least been reported that they're supporting 1.5 as well. Do you think this could signal a bit of a shift in the umbrella group? Because have we heard from the US yet? I'm not sure, but could this be a policy shift from the whole umbrella group that we're seeing?
Does anyone know that? Maybe? I don't know. I'm trying to think about the US. As far as my intel, I haven't heard that at all. I think on the Canadian side, we're just really excited that they mentioned that period. And I think what we've been noticing, at least in my opinion on the Canadian side, is that a lot of countries, especially the previous bad actors, have been jumping on to support statements that don't really mean much. So I think, in my opinion, that's what the one, in terms of how they're supporting it, that's what the 1.5 support looks to me, because they're not really acting on anything that would be necessary to actually commit to that goal.
So you're saying there needs to be kind of also follow up on maybe the means of implementation, maybe some of these kind of cycles of revision. Is that kind of what you're looking for?
Yes.
All right, did anyone get a timer on that one? That was meant to be a quick update. I think it pushed a little bit into a medium-term update. But if anyone's working their watches, just let me know. We have a number of other, I guess, kind of members of the audience. Dominique, I might pick on you as our local French resident. We had obviously kind of there's been a lot of media attention in France over the last week about the COP. I noticed there was a slightly different event happening in France over the weekend. But how has the media attention this week been on France? Is there kind of a general push for a kind of a positive idea of how the COP's going, or is there a lot of, I guess, questions over whether France can really pull this off?
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's really difficult to know. I think the French government is very keen on having an agreement, and the risk there is that they might agree with not such an ambitious one, but of course it would be better for them to have an ambitious agreement in time. Laurent Fabius wants something by Wednesday already, but not the final agreement. It's just a general view of it. But in the media, I feel that it will be very much about the French election, the regional election, where the extreme right party did very well. And so the whole week will be about alliances between other parties to try to counteract this. But still, I think there will be some room for the COP21. And I think maybe all the more because of this bad political situation, the government wants something very positive to be able to announce around the COP. That's what I would do if I were them.
So you're thinking it might be the best opportunity for the French government maybe to kind of step out again and say, look, a wonderful kind of more progressive government has done this and potentially could lead into the next elections. Is that what you're kind of thinking?
Well, this might be a little bit too much. I think I'm not sure they would link the two questions, but certainly they will be trying to get something very positive here, at least to have good news to announce next weekend or before.
Okay, so and I understand there's a second round of those elections next weekend. Is that right? Or is that so? So do you think that timeline could play into them trying to get the COP finished before the elections, kind of thing?
That could be as well, yes, because they wouldn't want the two news to get to. So yeah, definitely they would like something before Sunday night, which will be the final results of the elections. So maybe Saturday.
So you're saying that yachting trip off the coast of Portugal that I booked for Sunday, do you think I can still make that, or potentially I should revise the booking?
Up to you.
All right. So we just heard from colleagues in Canada and from France. Is there any other updates, especially I heard there's some moves in the G77 camp this morning. Is there any kind of representatives here who might want to discuss what the G77 is thinking at the moment, or how they're going? For anyone watching, the G77 represents about 120 plus countries here, and all of the countries who are, well, the majority of which are considered kind of developing, as well as a number of countries who've now moved into, I guess, kind of middle income status. So we have one correspondent here who's been a bit of our Malaysia correspondent in the past. Now, Malaysia in particular has been very vocal over the last week, and I guess representing a different negotiating group, as well as G77. They represent the, which group is it?
LMDC.
And what does that mean?
Like-minded developing countries.
And are they like-minded on everything, like karaoke choices? Are they like-minded, or is it kind of a specific thing that they're like-minded on?
It says they have specific similar interests in when it comes to the text. And yeah, I'm not so sure about karaoke themselves.
Because that's a big thing in Malaysia. So are they trying to like influence the other like-minded developing countries to kind of come across with a few good song selections?
Yeah, possibly.
All right, but what we did see mainly last week was kind of a lot of pushes back on the idea of differentiation. They want to see a lot more ambition from, I guess, developed countries. Did you get any sense how they felt at the end of the first week and how they might feel about kind of this second week?
Well, I didn't really get a chance to speak to them personally. Some other delegates, maybe they did. But from what I see, the Malaysian side, we've been really pushing for all these different things because we want to, and hopefully the energy carries on to this week as well. We get to make some really important and crucial decisions that we all need.
And we heard from our update from Josh that one of the members of LMDC, Venezuela in particular, was pushing against the idea of decarbonization. Is that something that is kind of, potentially from a Malaysian perspective, is that something that is possibly difficult for Malaysia as well?
For Malaysia, in particular, yes, it's very difficult because we depend mainly on petroleum and oil as our main industry. However, saying there is a big call for renewable energy mix in our energy profile, and at the same time, it's definitely going to be a difficult switch. However, if all countries from all around the world are making that switch, I don't see why we, Malaysia, can't do the same. We, the youth of Malaysia, are pushing our government for this to increase more and more renewable energy in our energy mix, and I hope that happens.
All right, well, thank you for that. And in Malaysia, they actually have a saying, right? It's something like, I can.
In Malaysia, we have a saying which is called boleh lah, which is basically can. La is sort of like a little Malaysian quirk where we add to the end of our sentences, and it's sort of just boleh lah means just can one, as in like it's sure, it's possible, anything's possible. There's a lot of optimism when it comes to Malaysian people, so yeah.
So maybe we need a bit of a decarbonization boleh lah kind of campaign. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to cross over here. We have a Peruvian colleague. It's Bitya. Bitya, ILAC's been kind of one of the key country groupings here that has been really pushing for a lot of the policies that I guess a lot of NGOs here are very supportive of. How do you think ILAC felt after the first week? Obviously, there was kind of more people going towards this 1.5, and I think ILAC has started to support
support the World 5. But, I think it's only people or the media because they're negotiating to
And one of the key issues for ILAC last week was this fight over human rights. And it still seems that in the new text it's kind of there, but there still seems to be a number of things that might be very difficult to manage. Do you get a sense from the, from the ILAC group, how confident they are about kind of their human rights aspirations in the text, or is there still a lot of kind of questions over how that might play out this week?
I think it's a good issue for this week. Not that much. I think it's not clear. But I think this week it's going to be so important the negotiations to clarify this.
Okay, great. And I guess this is one of the other issues that many people are concerned about. And this is an issue in particular that some of our Brazilian colleagues might have an understanding of. Brazil has been asked to sit as one of the facilitators this week. It's a pretty important role. Do you think Brazil will be able to live up to the challenge?
I think so, but we are still in a lot of difficulties with the Brazil government. For example, we aren't supporting 1.5. That's a shame for us. And we had a meeting with the Brazilian minister last week, and the minister just said, these countries that are supporting 2 degrees is only supporting now to pass a good impression because they aren't put the idea on the table. Just say I will support 1.5 degree, but they aren't put this on the table. But Brazil is supporting 2 degrees, but they say that they can negotiate something between 1.5 and 2 degrees. And you say something about the G77. Deborah is following the negotiation in finance. Is in the only area G77 is having consensus, and I think Deborah can explain better for you.
So I'm Deborah. And they're really touching the point of CBDR. I mean, that's like a huge consensus between G77, and they're putting in this all over the text, and also Red Plus. Red Plus has been a huge thing on the finance negotiations as well, and G77 is supporting both Red Plus and CBDR.
And Deborah, I guess it's not necessarily on finance as well. I've heard there's a lot of discussion within G77 about who would be considered as most vulnerable and who might be kind of more vulnerable than others. And that's obviously a very difficult decision to make on behalf of 120, I guess, developing countries. I've heard those discussions are going on now, and it's going kind of, it's a very difficult discussion. How do you think those discussions would go? And obviously, Brazil would have a very kind of particular role in those, being one of the more, I guess, more developed countries within the G77.
Yeah, this is always a sensible point, especially for Brazil, because even though we are considered developing or emerging, we're the top 10 economies and top 10 polluters as well. So that's always a sensible point, and I have no idea how that's going to go.
Also, Brazil have a proposal about the concentric circles, and the G77 is liking this idea, and also the European Union. The minister said that the European Union is supporting the idea of concentric circle with some change, but they are having a lot of problem inside the basic group because China and India can't accept the idea of concentric circles, and mostly the US wants China to be the center of these concentric circles in the borders.
So just in case anyone hasn't seen the concentric circles idea, it's basically an idea that we get all of the countries, instead of having a clear Annex 1 and Annex 2, we have kind of a few layers of different kind of responsibilities for different countries. And over time, those layers get updated, and slowly people work from the outside, which is the least responsibilities, towards the middle, which is what I guess the US was asking China to be a part of. In the middle, the most responsibility, equally committed as any other developed country. And obviously, this is a proposal that needs a lot of flexibility and needs a lot of kind of different decisions to be made, and is going to be one of the key decisions. So you can look out for that probably in the differentiation working group stream. One of the things we didn't mention, there's also going to be a specific group on legal and linguistic language this week. They're going to be working on trying to figure out exactly how to kind of fit the exact language. And we heard some updates over the weekend that potentially there's been a request from China to have a specific type of language. Josh, do you have updates on this? All right, he's given me the shaking face. Does anyone have updates on kind of how the language might go, or is there any legal experts in the room? All right, we'll make sure to get an update on that tomorrow. We hear that there could be some shifty language going around that could have significant impacts on how the agreement is kind of legally enforced. At this stage of the game, I usually ask for action updates. So action updates are any actions you're planning, any big kind of publicity stunts you're going for, any pressure you're trying to put on countries today. Do we have any action updates from the room? All right, well, I'm going to pass to Nathan here, and do you have an action update for us, or is it an action spreadsheet? I think it's...
Yeah, it's an update. There's also a spreadsheet available. So at 11:30, Oxfam are doing a action on adaptation, adaptation finance. I was also the capacity building session at 3. Do you want me to talk about right now? Sure, okay. So Climate Action Network is also hosting a capacity building session. It's mostly targeted for people who are new to this week, but we also have breakout groups from our policy experts on mitigation and reputation, finance, equity, and loss and damage. And they will also be answering questions on what happened so far and how are those thematic issues evolving into the second week. Yeah, so that's 3 p.m. at the Angle Room, so room 11.
And that capacity building group, what are you going to be kind of specifically focusing on today?
It's a capacity building session. So we'll have a 15-minute presentation mostly for new people who, to explain how can they get the most of the club. And the rest of the time will be different breakout groups led by our policy experts to answer questions on those different thematic issues.
All right, so if there's anything that we've left out here this morning, maybe there's a room for you in 3 o'clock. We have another update here.
Not so much an update, but more just to let you guys know. From the youth, Yango, the action group from Yango, we have made a physical calendar, which will be at our booth mainly at C25. However, I have it with me right now, and I will be bringing it to the Daily Tck whenever I can be here. If I can't, I'm sorry. But it'll be outside of this room for 15 minutes. There's post-its. You can write down whatever information about any actions, and other people can have a look at it as well. And yeah, instructions and all on the calendar itself.
And for those who haven't got involved in an action, it's probably one of my best memories, especially during my first couple of COPs. Getting involved in an action is a good release of tension, and it's also probably the best chance you have of influencing the media, because often these actions get very, very big media coverage. Some of the youth actions last week, I noticed, were reported in The Guardian and in Slate magazine and things like that. Were you in any of those photos, or did they kind of cut you out and focus on the others?
Yeah, I was in a few. I can't really keep track because I'm in the actions working group for Yango, and I've been getting myself involved. So I don't really know if I'm in any of those pictures. If you do see me, you can tag me _FS. Yeah.
All right, so if you haven't got involved in an action, that might be a great idea. And I hear the Brazilians have another samba action going on today. No? No?
We were going to, but we didn't get clearing from the security. We're trying to figure that out, but it's probably going to happen. I just have it's not an update, it's kind of a question of general opinion. A negotiator from Nicaragua came to talk to us because he wanted the fence whether we like help them or not. So I'd like to know if there's any Nicaraguans here in the room that I can talk to, or if you guys have any opinion on that.
Sure. So anyone with I guess, a Central American update, maybe some focus on Nicaragua. If you're kind of unsure about it, I know our tracker Diego Agüeres Ortez has written a few articles about it in Guatemalan media and in Central American media, as well as in IPS in English. So if anyone's got any updates on that, feel free to kind of contact Debra. But definitely your intelligence is right from my perspective. They haven't presented the INDC and they seem to be kind of very weary about this stuff. But if they are wanting to push a petition, maybe this is a great opportunity to kind of leverage them and put pressure on them as well in reverse. So they might be walking into something that they don't even know they're walking into. So maybe go with that. And if anyone's got updates for those guys, feel free to let them know. I noticed we have some of our young health people in the room, the IFIMSA people. And just a very quick update, you guys focus on health and obviously these concerns about 1.5 and human rights and things like that and probably specifically on health, they have a lot of health implications. How are you feeling after the first week, and are you confident that you get something that protects the health of people in this second week?
I think we've met the end of last week with a bit of apprehension as we've lost some of the language relating to health, to intergenerational equity. All of that was in Article 2, in the bulky Article 2, that language which now got moved to paragraph 10 of the preamble. However, we're glad to see that it's still nice language there, and we're glad to see what's present in the workstream 2 part of the agreement. Now, heading into this second week, our mode of work is a bit different. We're trying to support what we have in terms of health there and support the other concepts which are central to health. So the concepts of equity, the concepts of an ambitious agreement with an adequate long-term goal. So we're trying to focus on that narrative in our work. And if you're interested in hearing how health can contribute to one of those, please come and chat with, I guess, anyone on this table.
Yeah, it seems like you have a whole row of people to come and chat with, so there's probably plenty of opportunities. I'm going to cross now back to Tini. And Tini, you've been buried in your laptop, which I know is probably a prettier sight than my own. But what have you got from us from the interwebs in terms of the latest updates on communications?
Yeah, a few bits. But firstly, just before I go on to communications, just some prevention stuff. There was a little huddle this morning about some potential mobilisations around the issue of the ambition mechanism and making that happen. They're currently looking at doing an action tomorrow, but they're still in negotiations about what that should be and how it should look, as well as producing a whole social media package that people can use and share to kind of push for more ambition and strong cycles of ambition. So we'll keep you updated on that, and if anyone's interested in getting involved in that, you contact Lassie if you can, then they're the best person to kind of put you in touch with the people that are organising it. And if you don't have the email address, come and find us and we can help you out with that. Cool, on to communication stuff. So yeah, going into the second week, moving into the COP phase. Still a lot of kind of coverage over the weekend about the process. Still fairly positive. A lot of journalists are comparing now to 2009 and looking at how much of a better position we are going into the second week now than we were then. I think it's something ridiculous like in 2009 at this point, 300-page text. Now it's about 21 pages, so getting there, I guess. Also a lot more focus as journalists are being invited from home, a lot more focus sort of on different country levels and how sort of the politics at country level plays into the negotiations. Imagine that it's all going to ramp up again as of today. I think a lot of journalists that went away are coming back. I think a lot more will be turning up over the next 2 days. I think the kind of amount of journalists is expected to double. So a lot more coverage is expected over the coming days. Just a few things that are happening today outside the negotiations. A lot of the focus is going to be on energy and on the power of renewables, so lots of interesting side events to go along to that. And we've got a whole host of graphics, they're going to help you share that story online. So if you're interested in getting those, come and chat to me. They'll be going up conference, which is happening in 1 minute, is a really good opportunity to get a sort of download on where the negotiations are at. They're going to be tackling different issues today, including the issue of differentiation, so an interesting one to get an idea of where the negotiations stand at with that. We've also got a few other NGO press conferences today giving their take, including WWF, I think also WWF Germany, and a few others. A few different countries will also be giving their sort of latest, including the EU. Russia's got an interesting press conference planned. Not sure how that one's going to go down. Indonesia is also giving a press conference later today, as well as the US. And there's also the usual slot by the UN and the COP presidency, which is another good opportunity to get a little bit of a download of where we're at. And also the UN Secretary General, although that one has been rearranged a few times. So keep looking to see whether it definitely takes place. It will be happening at 12:40 if it does happen. Yeah, Chris is showing you some wonderful graphics. Also, I don't know if anyone's seen today, but there's a lot going on around the hashtag of climate criminals. I don't know if you saw the posters that are being spread across Paris today. So keep an eye out for that. We've also got a couple of graphics that are coming up on our Flickr page. You can see the first one up there now to share around that. But there's some brilliant photos coming on the VAS Twitter site if you want some more photos to share on that. So that's another big one, focusing on the people that are potentially blocking the negotiations and probably shouldn't be at the negotiations. So yeah, keep an eye out for that today as well.
So these wanted posters that we're seeing now on the screen, if you go to Climate Criminals hashtag, are they really wanted? Like, how wanted are they? Very wanted. Sounds like very, very wanted. More wanted than I was at the Cannes party, that's for sure. Anyway, as we move forward, this has been a wonderful evening of, well, I guess a wonderful morning of updates. And thank you so much. We'll be back here at 10:15 tomorrow morning to give you the latest updates on everything that happens in negotiations today. This broadcast is live streamed and recorded. If anyone goes to the Climate Tracker YouTube page, you can find the recording, as well as the Tck live stream blog, which I understand is being embedded to. So if you go to either of those, you can watch this back or send it to friends and family. And we'll be back here live again tomorrow morning. Hope you can all join us and bring all of your updates and intel and action updates that you have, and we'll share them around as far as we can. Thanks a lot, everyone, and we'll see you again tomorrow.